All right, this is jpeg2RAW, show number 66, and it's actually our last show of the year, Tim. This is, it's only the 18th, but the next show would fall on Christmas Day, and we're not going to do a show then, so this is our last show of the year. And what a better way to end the year, but by having Scott Greene come back. Scott's our guest tonight. Scott, how are you?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing good. And Scott, we're going to talk about this in just a minute, but you had a great opportunity this past weekend to shoot in the Georgia Dome for was it the Georgia State High School Football Championships?
Yes, the GHSA State Championships for all classifications.
Okay. So that was a great opportunity, and we can't wait to hear more about it. Before we get into that, for anybody who's new or you're listening to this later and you're new, jpeg2RAW is a weekly podcast we do for free. Kathleen is another one of our co-hosts who's out tonight. I think her kids had something at school. But it's usually Kathleen, Tim, and I. And then we bring on great guests like Scott and interview them and talk to them about what they do. We're also, you can get the show, if you can't watch it live, you can get it on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, YouTube, and many other podcast catchers like Beyond Pod and, dang it, I forget every week. What do you use, Tim?
Downcast on my iPod Touch.
You use Downcast on iPod. I use Beyond Pod on Android, and there's many other choices. We also have a very active Facebook group. Just go to Facebook and search for jpeg2RAW, the group. We also have a Facebook page where I announce when we're having a show come on, so you can go and like that. And we're often doing giveaways because we have 3 affiliate links now, Tim. We have, of course, Amazon. We have Adorama, and we have Newegg. So Newegg is generally where I buy my computer equipment. And, all photographers use computers. If you're going to buy computers, they're a good choice. So if you're going to buy something, that you from one of those 3 sites, take a look at those links on our website. Click on that. Go to Amazon, Adorama, or Newegg, and make your purchase. It adds nothing to the cost for you, but it gives us a little credit. And we use all the funds to give away things like we're going to give away tonight, this Expo disc. And we have actually already did the drawing. Y'all just don't know who the winner is. And I don't think they're out there in chat tonight, but I will send them an email as soon as we're done. And let's go ahead and get that out of the way. Tim, you ready for the winner?
Sure.
I'm not even going to try and pronounce the last name. I know I will mess it up. But the winner is Matthew James something. Matthew James something. I don't know. Matthew, I'll be sending you an email as soon as this is over with to get your address. As soon as you can give me your address, I will ship this out to you, so hopefully you can get it before Christmas. And if you didn't win tonight, we are always looking to, one, use those funds from Adorama, Amazon, and Newegg to buy additional gifts, plus get different companies who come on the show to, they generally will give us something to give away. So one of those that we have coming up somewhere in 2013 is Topaz Labs. So I'm sure we'll get something good from them. Don't forget that the October, November, and December winners in our Facebook group photo contest, whatever, wins a signed copy of Michael Clark's Exposed. And you know what's funny, Tim, is I've gone online. It's like I'm working on Lightroom, and I'm looking for what are other people using for noise reduction? What are other people using for whatever else? It seems like I keep coming across Michael Clark's articles that he wrote on Lightroom, just by chance. I'm not trying to get to his stuff. So he's a great resource. We're going to have him back maybe in January, but you'll get a signed copy of that. If you're one of those winners. Plus, for December is a different kind of contest. The top 3, the 3 finalists, and the finalists are chosen by the members by liking the photo. The 3 finalists all will receive a 1-year subscription to Clickin' Mom's new magazine.
That's cool.
Yep, a 1-year subscription there. And the winner, in addition to winning the Michael Clark book, will win a 1-year membership to Clickin' Moms. And you don't have to be, Scott, if you win, you don't have to be a mom to win these. You can, apparently they do have dudes over there, so you can do that. So the way you enter the contest, one, you have to be a member of the group, and then you post your photo in the special album we have set up for it. And you have to the end of the month to do that. We will, at the end of the month, encourage people to vote, and then about a week after the the end of the month, we will announce a winner on the next show, right after that. I've mentioned before the last show. I'm not going to show it tonight because I want to get to Scott here in a second. But coming in 2013, we will be launching our new website. I'm slowly making progress on that, and I think it looks a little better than our current one, which is not bad. But also in January,
a little bit more polished up. That's all it is.
It's a little more polished. And in January, Kathleen is going to be doing a giveaway, a special 1-hour mentoring with Kathleen that I know Scott wants to win. Scott is looking to break into the infant photography business.
Cannot wait.
But Kathleen is a very good photographer. She knows what she's doing, and that'll be a great contest to win. Coming in probably in January is when we'll start that. And I think that's all I have for an intro there, Tim.
Very good.
Okay. So Scott, we've had Scott. If you don't know Scott, we've had Scott on the show a few other times. He does. You need to go to his website, which is what, greenworks.net. Is that it?
Yeah, that's Greene with an E. Or you go to my blog. Either one.
And we'll have that in the show notes. But he takes some amazing senior photos and wedding photos, of course, and all that. And of course, my wife saw the ones you did of the swimmer. And she goes, "Oh, we got to hire Scott to be, Christopher. Christopher's my eldest. He's a junior right now. He's a swimmer. We got to hire Scott to do senior photos for Christopher." And I've reminded her a couple times, you do know that I take photos.
You got quite a bit of equipment there.
But the reality is, I'm not going to stack myself up against Scott. So I'm not going to fight that one. You look at Scott's work, and it's definitely. And I don't want to say this now. Wait till after I hire you, Scott. I think you're undercharging for your work. It's that good. But tonight, I'd like to focus more on the sports side of what you do, Scott. And you got a great opportunity this weekend. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, basically here in Jefferson, Georgia, our high school team went 14-1 on the regular season. Lost our very first game. Made it to the state playoffs, like third time in 10 years. And made it to the state championship game the first time in 33 years. Though we've never won it. We had a pretty good shot this year. We was playing a team called Calhoun. And both had the same record. And I'd been taking pictures pretty much all season for the team, just not really selling any, just kind of doing it for fun, just because I like to shoot. And then, of course, I'd post them on Facebook, and people would tag, and this, that, and the other. Well, I got asked if I was going to go to the Dome and shoot, and I said, well, yeah, hopefully if I can get on the field. I don't want to shoot from the stands. And then, luckily, I had a July bride that I shot this past July. And she works for a sports marketing company who does basically graphic design, posters. They actually made the programs for the playoffs. And she asked me if I could send her some images from the season. She's going to use some in the program. And I was like, well, that's cool. I'll do that. I says, but just got a question for you. Is there any way I can get a pass to the field on the Friday and Saturday? And she's like, well, let me check. And like 30 minutes later, she emailed me back and said that they had one waiting on me, field, on the turf. I was like all excited. So it's pretty much how I got down on the field. And then I went and rented a massive lens, which was pretty amazing to shoot with in itself. But in a nutshell, that's kind of how I got on the field. I was kind of shooting for a sports marketing company who I've already got the images back to them.
So when you're shooting at the high school, I imagine that's just you're working out a deal with the high school. They let you on the field. Maybe you know people there, and you just let people on. They let you come on the field and shoot, but they probably didn't have that authority to get you on the field in a dome, right?
They did. I contacted the athletic director. I know him pretty well. And he said he had me a press, because each high school gets 2 press passes, or media passes, or whatever they want to call it, for field side.
Okay.
And he said he had me one, and I was like, well, great. And then DJ, the girl that got me the Score Atlanta press pass, she had one, and I was like, well, there's no need of me taking one up with the school because there's several other parents that I usually shoot with during the games that, you know, one of them could use, obviously, the one that I was going to have. So I contacted the AD, and I was like, hey, you know, thanks for the pass, but I've come across another pass if you'd like to free that one up. He's like, yeah, that'd be great. So kind of help get another parent on the field that, you know, is kind of a amateur pro type photographer. So got them the good experience as well.
So you talk about you rented a huge lens. Which lens did you rent?
Yes, it's and I think you had a picture of it floating through there somewhere, but it's the Nikon. It's an older lens. It was the 400 f2.8. I mean, it was
f2.8.
It was massive.
That's a big lens.
Yeah, if you're watching the video here, eventually we'll cycle back through. We'll see that Scott holding that lens. And in that photo, and we don't have it up quite yet, but in that photo, it looked like the lens hood was. Is it a lens hood that's permanently attached that maybe you just had slid back, or what?
You know, one of the guys from our group rented it for me because I wasn't going to be able to make it to Atlanta, and I went over to his house, and as we were sitting there talking, and I was kind of playing with it, and because it's a, you know, $6,000-7,000 lens, I wasn't wanting to unscrew too many things on it because I didn't know. I think it might have been a lens hood, but I really couldn't get it to budge or move, so I just kind of left it alone because I really wasn't doing anything with the focus ring anyway, since I was going to be using automatic focus. So I just kind of left it be, but it was pretty nice. Really heavy, but really nice.
It's killing me now, so I'm going to have to go and find it because there it is.
Now, like I said, it's the older one. It's the AFS, I believe. It was so old it had an old aperture ring on it.
Okay, because it looks like that part that's in the front section. Maybe it's would slide forward and be the lens hood, like a built-in lens hood.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking, and you can't really tell it from this picture, but up underneath there's like these little screws.
Oh, okay.
There's 3 screws, and you may unscrew those and take it off and flip it, but again, I was just going to be shooting with it for about 3 hours, so I didn't want to mess with it too much.
So, you know, something you mentioned there is the cost of this lens. So you mentioned this is an older one, so you probably can't find one of these new, but you know, Nikon and of course Canon still make a 400-2.8. How much is a new Nikon 400-2.8 going for?
$9,549.95.
You just looked it up. 95.
Yeah, I put it in the show notes already.
So when you're looking at the Scott Greenes on the sidelines of high school, or the pros on the sidelines of some pro team, and they have these huge lenses. They're sitting there with $9,500 worth of lens.
And you know, I used to think, seeing all those people on the fields with those, I was like, man, that's crazy that they've got all this stuff. But a lot of them's like what I did. They go out and they rent the equipment.
Okay.
There's a lot of that. Like I talked to several photographers there who one cat had like the big 600.
Yeah.
And he said he was renting. So either that or whoever they're shooting for, you know, like the Atlanta Banner Herald or sports, you know, usually might own the lens or whatever, and they're just kind of getting it from them. But yeah, rarely do a lot of the photographers own, you know, the big 11.
Well, unless they're like on the newspaper side, or something where they're at a baseball game every day or something.
Unless that's all they do, yeah.
Or maybe
well, I'm looking at rental. I found a place, lensrental.com, $323 for 5 days renting.
Yeah, so let's ask you, if you don't mind sharing, how much did it cost to rent, and how many days did you have to rent it for?
That lens, we looked it up. I could rent it for the weekend, and I'm assuming the weekend was from Friday, returned on Monday, or it was $120.
Oh, that's not bad.
Or $110. I think I gave Mike an extra 10 for picking it up and dropping it off for me.
That's not bad at all.
No, it's not bad. For something specific that you're not going to use it all the time, I mean, versus spending $9,000, yeah, that's great.
And you know, when you start going through the photos again, and if you've seen them before, I mean, the 400 Not to take away from Scott's ability, but the 400 is just takes some gorgeous photos. I mean, that blur and the sharpness is just really amazing.
Yeah, it really compresses that background.
And now I notice in this shot you also have another camera hanging from your right shoulder. What lens were you shooting there?
All right, and this is what's kind of strange. I've got the D3S is what I put the 400 on.
Okay.
And then the D4, which actually focuses a lot better in fast-moving sports, I've got the 70 to 200 on.
Okay.
The reason I didn't reverse them, put the D4 on the 400 was, believe it or not, the D4 is not quite as good with higher ISOs than the D3 series.
Wow.
It's kind of a heartbreaker for the money that I paid for it. But it's still great, but it's just more noticeable grain at the same ISOs that the D3S is just crystal clear.
Huh,
With that being said, had I known what I was going to be shooting on at the Dome, I would have swapped the lenses back over because I think I was shooting at most 1250 ISO.
Okay.
So,
and you know, obviously, with something as massive as a 400-2.8, you're shooting with a monopod.
yeah.
Did the lens foot come with the lens?
It did.
Okay.
That lens alone, I mean, just carried it into the. I put the lens on the monopod with the lens cap on the back of it, and just carried it into the Dome for what, a couple hundred yards I was walking. I bet that lens probably weighed 30 pounds.
Wow.
It was, and then carrying that thing up and down the sidelines. Running it with a 5-foot stick with camera and lens. I mean, I had my workout definitely that day. So
Definitely. So you're definitely not attaching it to the camera and walking around with it on your shoulder like you are the one on your right shoulder.
No, not with that.
I
I actually tried to be cool like a lot of the other sport photographers and kind of throw it over my shoulder.
Yeah.
And I guess you call that the ball that it's sitting on. I guess I wasn't strong enough to hold the weight, so when I did it, just kind of like drooped over.
Yeah, that's scary.
I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore.
Now, did you have insurance on that as well?
It is to rent lenses. They do it one of two ways, from what I understand, and I don't know if Mike Coletta's out there or not, but I was going to rent it, and if you've got company insurance, then you give them the form, and they send you off with the lens, and heaven forbid if anything happens, then your insurance takes care of whatever needs to be done. If you don't have insurance, I could be wrong, but I'm under the impression that they go ahead and charge you the full amount until you bring it back, and then they
full amount of what? The lens?
$9,500.
Yeah,
Holy moly.
Yeah, like you have to have a credit card that can hold whatever amount you're renting, from what I understand. I could be totally way off base, but when I called years ago thinking about renting equipment, that's kind of what he told me.
Well, that would be a showstopper for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, if you got insurance, you just show them that form. They make a copy of it. Boom, send you on your way. Football player hits it and breaks it. My deductible's $250, so I just pay $250, and insurance takes care of the rest.
Well, you see a lot of guys in whether professional football, baseball games where those guys jump out of the way. I mean, and you're talking a heavy lens like that. I'm surprised a lot of them don't break.
Yeah. Well, they're fairly sturdy. I mean, but I would not want to be jumping around with all that glass.
No.
So somebody on chat, Tag Photography out in chat, says another good reason to be part of Nikon Professional Services. You rent these for free. I'm not familiar with that. I don't know if you are.
Yeah, that's Travis Graham with Tag Photography from South Carolina. What's up, Travis? I actually have. I'm trying to see if I can find it. The way Nikon Professional Services works, I've got my form. I just get you have to be referred by another professional, and I don't know. It's kind of like a little click or whatever, but you have to be referred by another professional. Yep, there's the link, And you get these benefits and perks, and I think you get to try out stuff before it really comes out. I haven't quite followed through with it yet. I'm kind of slacking, but I need to soon.
Yeah. So one thing you hit on is something about one of your brides got you to contact that you ultimately use that. When you're shooting high school sports for free, the high school football for free, is it I don't know if you're doing it just because you love shooting sports, which is what I love doing. I love shooting sports, or if it's also, maybe this is a two-pronged thing. It's another way of getting your name out there. You got to think all these high school kids, their parents, they're thinking about senior portraits and starting that whole relationship, senior wedding, all that. Is that part of the thinking there, that you're willing to do the high school stuff for free because of that, or is it more so just because you love doing it?
The first part's probably the main reason, just because I like to shoot and I like a good challenge, and I have yet to really be really happy with my high school football photography as far as like at a high school field, and we'll get into the lighting here in a minute, but that was one reason. It's just I'm trying to kind of master that part of it, because I wanted to shoot like the big boys, like you see in the Sports Illustrated and all this, that, and the other. Lo and behold, they have like the best equipment and the best lighting to work with. But then on the flip side, again, like I do shoot a lot of seniors, so I'll take pictures and I'll tag them on Facebook, and hopefully come their senior year or whatever, mom, dad likes to call it Scott Greene Photography to do their pictures.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you talked about lighting. So I've got to imagine the lighting in the Georgia Dome is a little bit different than the lighting in your normal high school stadium.
Oh, it's night and day different. It's amazing.
So tell us a little bit about the lighting, both in, I guess, quantity and quality were quite a bit different.
Yeah, basically, when I shoot at a high school field, I'm basically shooting in shutter priority, because the lighting changes so much from one end of the field to the other. As we talked earlier, I don't like to pull my shutter down below 320 because I really start to get a lot of motion blur. And the thing about shooting, and I don't know if anybody out there has done it like at a high school football field, but you might take an 8-picture sequence, just boom, 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 real quick, and the next thing you know, you go back and flip through, and you got good light, then all of a sudden you get like a dark magenta shot, then good, then two dark. I mean, it's just like it's all over the place, and it used to drive me insane. It did it from every camera I had, from the D200 all the way up to the D4, and I'm like, okay, it just must be at this point, I didn't know if it was a Nikon thing or what. And luckily, I run up on a couple of photographers that were real nice at the Dome, and I was mentioning it to them, and Mike, I think me and you kind of had a theory about it leading up to it, but basically the lighting at like high school fields, it reminds me of like a TV. I don't know if you ever shot a picture of a TV screen, but if you're shooting really fast, a lot of times you can catch like a black bar that goes across the TV screen, and what it is the light pulsating so quick, strobing, pulsating, however you want to term it. And if you're shooting at high shutter speeds, a lot of times you'll catch the in between the pulsates, which causes that darkness or that color shift. Now the Dome, there's a set of lights back there in the background. Not sure what kind they were, but every shot I shot was the exact same. I could shoot in full manual mode. I didn't have to change my settings from one end of the field to the other. I mean, it was just even lighting everywhere. It was, I mean, you could go in there and not know anything and just take great pictures. Just the lighting is magnificent.
Yeah, that's awesome, because a lot of us who shoot high school sports, you don't get that chance because we're all shooting those high school gyms. I've shot basketball in a high school gym and experienced the same thing. Is those lights are pulsating, and you can't see it with your eye. But when you get home and you look at those photos, you go, what the heck happened here? I was shooting manual mode. Because in the high school gym, it's a little bit different than maybe the football field, is that the lighting, especially if I'm going to only be shooting near the basket, is fairly even. So I can set it in manual mode, be full manual, and be fairly close to spot on with the exposure. But you get home and you got some that are way underexposed. What happened? The other thing I've noticed is the scoreboard. So if you ever try to get the scoreboard in like a shot, maybe you've got like when I'm shooting swimming, I got the time up on the scoreboard, and I want to get the player. Is that timer, the scoreboard or the time sheet, whatever it is pulsating too. So when you take a photo of it, you may get home and find out that at the time you took it, it was pulsating, and there's no numbers whatsoever on the scoreboard. So you need to make sure you take a lot of photos of that in rapid succession, so at least some of them will come out, and they don't all come on and off evenly. They're all coming on and off at their own time. So if you don't take enough of them, you may only get part of the scoreboard. Have you ever experienced that?
I've never really shot. The only time I use scoreboard is usually at the very end. And it's usually just a few shots, but yeah, the dome lighting, it's just, and they had it, like I said, it's all around the top, around the sides. It's just, like I said, it's beautiful. As soon as I walked in, I was just like, this is going to be a great day. Yeah. And luckily we won too, so it made it even better.
Yeah, the lighting looked great. Let me ask you a question about this photo that you got up. So I do this by accident, and I don't know, maybe you did it on purpose, but it's one of the things I got to be careful of when I'm shooting swimming. Sometimes if I'm not careful, it sometimes looks like the player is swimming up a hill, because you got all the lane ropes, so it's very obvious when I don't have the horizon correct, and it looks like the person is swimming up a hill. In this shot, was this an artistic thing, or is this you did the same thing?
I don't think it was meant to be artistic, but it doesn't really bother me, I don't guess. I'm trying to think, and this goes to show you too how close that 400 is. Like, see how he's on the 10-yard line?
Yeah.
I might have shot this with my 7200 because I think I'm down on his end of the field. So I was probably hand-holding this one. So yeah, it's probably about an 8-shot sequence, and I was just trying to. I saw the quarterback drop back to pass, and usually he goes to one or two guys. It's either number 12, who is this guy here, or number 7. And it just so happened 12 was on my end of the field, so I just kind of, when I saw the quarterback drop back, I just put the camera on him and kind of gambled right here. But it's probably just a matter of me shifting over to him and not really having time to, truly set up the.
Well, sometimes, I often try to make sure I watch the horizon, but sometimes not having the horizon perfectly level adds to the image, not necessarily distracts from it. Unfortunately for me, I generally am doing it by accident. But you can crop it to be right. But in this, I was going to say, in this image, I don't think it distracts from it. And I was wondering if you did that on purpose to add something to it.
Yeah, I don't think I did it on purpose, but honestly, I didn't realize it till you just brought it up. So
no, it actually looks good because you got the players back up in that top corner, so kind of balanced out the picture.
And then the other beautiful thing by shooting with this team, like you have, you've come to know some of the plays.
Exactly, that's key. I was talking to one of the guys that I'd met on the sideline, and he was shooting both teams, and I was shooting mainly Jefferson. Like I said, I shot him all season, and that's what I was telling him. I was like, you can pretty much bet that we're going to pass at least 2 to 3 downs out of every series, and if we do, you need to focus in on number 12 and number 7. And I says, just go to one of those every play, and you're probably going to, get some great shots because you're going to 50-50 chance. So, but yeah, it does help to know the team that you're shooting and kind of almost set up. So now I can usually tell once we get on the 30, I'll go get in the corner of the end zone because I know we're fixing to pass like crazy down on coming that way. So
yeah, if you look at some of the Sports Illustrated shots, now while they do have a big coverage, so there's not one guy there and he's taking all these amazing shots every time he snaps a shutter. They have a number of people there. But that said, they're probably doing the same thing you're doing. You kind of know the team, you know the players, and you kind of have an idea of where the play is going to go, and you set yourself up to be in a position to get that. And so at least you have a shot at it.
Yeah, that was actually a. I don't know if it was who the team was. I really didn't see the back of their shirts, but they all had on yellow shirts, and there was probably about 8 of them, and you had one in each end zone. I think you had 2 down on the sidelines. So that's 6, and there was a few more running around getting crowd shots, but they were all working together. And like I said, you had the 2 on each sidelines working both sides, and then the 2 in the end zones. I mean, they just didn't move the whole game. They just kind of, when the ball came to their area, that's when they started shooting, and as it got out of play, they kind of rested, I guess.
Did you have access to the whole sidelines? You know, both end zones and 2 sidelines.
I did. I went around on the visitor side and got a few shots of the home stands, wearing all the blue out, and I actually got on TV a couple times. A buddy of mine sent me a screenshot where he TiVo'd it, and they're interviewing one of the coaches, and I'm in the background kneeling down, taking a shot of something. I don't even remember it, but.
Cool. You talk about taking shots of the fans. We had one a minute ago, and I'm sure some more will come up here in a second. And that's something that I think sometimes especially when you're new into sports photography, you forget to look at things other than just the action on the field. There's other things going on, the emotion of the parents, the emotion of the crowd, things like the scoreboard you just had here. I mean, that's a shot that some people may forget to take.
Right.
There's the score. Showing I guess that's
this shot right here, Mike. He's a good friend of mine. He's the defensive coordinator for Jefferson. The game was like his defense had just come off the field, and his eyes were actually kind of glassy. I mean, everybody was getting real emotional, but you could tell he was looking up at the scoreboard, and he just had that look of like, whew, we've done it. And I just happened to be there and just caught a few shots of it. That was my favorite out of the ones, but that was so him, just like, oh, it's over with, we've done it, kind of like a sigh of relief.
Yeah, because let me ask you this, because a lot of people think that the main thing of sports is the action, but I often find that my favorites that I come away with is not necessarily the action, which I do love those, but it's the emotion. The emotion in the players, the one we got up now, that's great. That's an action shot. But the one you just talked about where the guy, was, looking up at the scoreboard, the player right here coming off the field, you had some others of the players. The emotion that's involved in the sport is often makes some of the best shots.
Yeah. There's one shot, I think my favorite, it's kind of an action/emotion shot. It's in here somewhere. It's a big old, I think it's a tight end, number 88, big boy. He's catching the ball and he's kind of like planting to cut, and you can see his eyes just like plain as day looking at the defender. Yeah. I mean, it's like an action shot, but like you can see the intensity just kind of in his face through his helmet. It's a pretty cool shot.
In the helmet shot you got right here, I like those too. So you got to often think not just the action. You got to think of
right, because everybody knows what the action is about. It's all the other things where people don't ever get to see really.
So this shot, I think that's where like the wedding photography kind of helps me out with this kind of photography. It's like, because the wedding photography you try to capture the whole parts of the what's it saying, that the sum of the parts are greater than the whole.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like with wedding photography, you want to capture the detail stuff, the little just stuff that make up the day. And I guess with me being minded like that so much, it's kind of, not only am I catching the football, but I'm catching the other stuff, the little stuff as well. And when you put it all together, it kind of makes for a nice little album.
Yeah, it kind of tells the story. Now, in this shot here, this doesn't look like, it's definitely not the 400, but it also doesn't look like the 70, the 200.
Now, that's as soon as get about a minute and a half left of the game, I went and put down the 170-pound camera setup and gave my back a break, but I went and grabbed my 24-70. I knew I was going to want some wide-angle shots. I was hoping I was going to get some wide-angle shots with this winning. So I went ahead and threw on the 24-70. Still stayed in manual mode, still had it continuous. And basically this right here, I've just basically got the camera above my head, just pointed down, felt the click or the focus, and just rounded off a few and caught, some pretty good emotion.
Yeah, you had much better luck than that with that than I've had. I've always get them. Again, my horizon's like almost completely sideways, and the focus is everywhere. So, I was looking at something in chat, but what lens did you say you used here?
This was
24-70.
Yeah, 24-70.
Oh, that's one of the Holy Trinity lenses.
Oh yeah, it's all purpose. It's great.
14 to 24, 24 to 70, 70 to 200. They're the Nikon Holy Trinity. Okay. So let me ask you a few specifics. Now this may be getting a little too specific. You may not know this, but one of the things when I shoot swimming is the water coming in front of somebody. Often the focus gets knocked off of that person. Do you use any kind of what do we call that on the Nikon camera? You got the single spot where you're focusing on the center spot, or if you move it off center, but single focus point versus what are the others? Group or dynamic or something like that?
Yeah, you've got a single servo. Then you can switch over to continuous, and that's where you get to pick your actual focus point numbers. I think on the D3S it's like 9, 21, 52, I believe. And
yeah,
then it goes to a mode called 3D Matrix.
Yeah, and I'm talking, I have mine set on continuous focus, but on the back, and I'm not even showing me in chat here, so people can't see, so I'll show it now. But on the back, you have the little dial,
right,
to the left, and I don't know if y'all can even see that in chat, but that dial you can either put it on the single focus point, the dynamic or something like that, and then I guess the other one where it actually just chooses whatever it needs and moves around. Which one do you typically use?
When I'm shooting continuous mode, I use dynamic, the middle one.
Okay.
Because what that does is if you put it at the very top one, that's the one that they call 3D Matrix or whatever.
Yeah.
That one basically, it's good for when you've got single moving subjects because it basically tracks your focus. It kind of guesses where it's going. But when you use the dynamic, then you're using your focus points, and whatever crosses, one of those focus points at any given moment, it can lock. And luckily with football, if you got somebody running the ball, they're usually your main point, and your camera can kind of track it as it comes through. Like this guy here, I got several shots of him, but obviously he's not the closest to the camera, but my focus point's locked on him and kind of followed him through the frame. So
you're using the middle one.
Yeah.
Which is, what did you call that one again?
I think it's called dynamic.
Yeah, I think it is too. So now you don't like the single focus point because that one is going to shift around too much?
Now the only thing about the single is whatever you've got the middle of your camera pointed at is what it's going to focus on.
Well, even with the single, can't you move it to left or right?
You can, but when you're trying to catch a running back going from the 30 down to the end zone, it's a little tough to keep up with him with your focus points.
Yeah, you pretty much have to decide at the front end of what you're shooting.
Yeah,
where
so that's what dynamic does. Is it kind of basically almost like it knows what it's doing. It kind of tracks it for you.
And you've had pretty good luck with that moving around?
Yeah, very rarely do I. Once I lock onto my subject, very rarely does it shift to something else, unless something just comes right in front of the camera. It'll lock onto that, but typically, if I've got just like this shot here, it's going to focus on him, even running directly at me or horizontal or whatever.
All right, and I've kind of gone back and forth. Mine with the swimmers, they're not moving quite as much as your football players because they're, lane bound. So I don't have quite as much with that. Oh, and I love this shot here before we move on. That's an emotion shot that you get of somebody in the stands, and if you're just watching the players, you'd miss that. That was a great shot. So there's another thing that I've gone back and forth on, and Tim, I don't know how this is on your Sony, and Kathleen's not here to talk about her Canon, but there's the focus tracking with lock-on. Have you fooled with that any at all, Scott?
I think that's kind of what like what the 3D Matrix does. It supposedly locks on. Like I said, the only thing with the Matrix that I don't like is as soon as you switch into Matrix mode, your focus point in the viewfinder goes away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I hate that.
Yeah, and a lot of times, what your camera locks onto before you start shooting is not exactly what you want it to be locked onto. And
I never can use that mode because I can't.
That may not be what it shoots, but to me, it's messing with me. So I have to do at least dynamic where I can, lock it here and then I'll go from there.
I have that on my Sony as well, and I tried that in soccer because one of the issues I had, my son's the goalie, so I try to focus in on him, and you can't use automatic focusing because anytime anybody steps in front of him, it focuses on the new person. So I tried using the lock on him, and it didn't really work well. So I will manual focus on him now, so that when I'm getting a shot, I know I can get what I want.
Yeah, my understanding of the focus tracking with lock on is in my camera it has long, normal, and short. And what that is let's say you're using the dynamic focus, the middle one there on the Nikon, that it will track that player and it will try and it'll stay locked on that player. And if somebody runs in front of him, it will stay locked on that player instead of switching to the other one, depending on how you have that set. So if it's set on short, it'll switch much faster than if you had it set on long. It'll try and hold that longer. The downside, of course, is if your player, I think, is moving toward you, it may stay locked in the wrong position too long.
Right. It's not a perfect thing.
No, it's not a perfect thing.
It's that fuzzy logic.
I've gone back and forth between normal and short.
Yeah, and what I've learned from just shooting high school games in general, especially, even at the Dome where everything's like dreamy and perfect, but mainly at just normal high school games where it's just, I think, it's bad to say this because we all don't want to think that we shoot like this, but for these kind of games, it's kind of like spray and pray, it's, you shoot a 8 to 10, 12 picture sequence and one, hopefully you caught the good part of the action, and two, hopefully you got several things that are sharp and usable. So,
yeah, we talked about that and before we came online. Is with any of these sports, you've got players moving all over the place. You've got their head moving around real fast. You got to take a lot of shots because in a sequence where you maybe took an 8-shot, 8 frame shot. Majority of them may not have turned out, but inside that 8th frame may be the one where you catch his eyes, and that's a good shot. Plus, if you're shooting tight, you may end up chopping off feet or chopping off something else, and that one shot comes through.
Yep.
Well, okay, so you're going to be going out and buying a 400 here, Scott?
Oh man, I don't know. Doubtful.
Fit it on the wedding photography, I guess.
Yeah, doubt. If I could use it at a wedding, I probably would, but I can't justify it right now.
Yeah. So, what do you normally use for your high school shots? High school football?
Just strict 70 to 200 on the D4, and that's.
Yeah. Okay, I know with the 400, you said you can be on the end zone, and you could what'd you say? Go all the way out to the 50, maybe even the 40 on the other side.
Yeah, and still get visibly good detail.
Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily be filling the frame, but it would still be a decent shot.
Well, like this shot right here, he's basically on the 50,
okay,
and I'm standing in the back of the end zone.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, all this action where that logo is around the 50-yard line.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And I'm in the back of the end zone.
And that's uncropped. That is.
That's uncropped. There was no real crop in the 400 because.
So you're at the back of the end zone. They're at the 50-yard. That's with the 400. So in reality, if they're on the 10-yard line, you can't even really use the 400.
No. If they got within inside the 20, I was putting the 400 down, picking up the 70 to 200. That's why.
Yes.
That's why that picture you saw had the 7200 on along with the 400 because once they get into a certain range, there's no shooting the 400.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting that kind of detail out at the 50, I mean, you're going to hit it before you got to switch over to the 200, where that's just going to be too close.
Yeah.
With the 200, the 70 to 200, which is a great lens, what do you do there? Are you in the end zone? I imagine if you're in the end zone, you're only making it out to maybe the 20 or 30.
Yeah, typically, which just knowing how Jefferson plays, I know they're going to pass the ball a lot. And when they pass, they usually 15, 20-yard passes at a time. So anytime they actually get around the 40 on the other side, I'll actually go down to the corner of the end zone because I know they're coming my way quick.
Mm-hmm.
When they're on defense, I'll get on the sidelines and shoot kind of just in front of the ball and catch some action that way with it.
So, do you ever have a challenge with? Okay, so you're down at the end zone. The team is coming towards you. Now, unlike soccer, where all the players are facing you and heading your direction, the receiver is generally not facing you. Maybe when he's running to go out there, but he's generally going to be facing the other way when he goes to catch the ball. So, is that just, hey, that's just what I have to deal with? I can't get a shot of him looking at me while he catches the ball.
Yeah, and what I've come to experience, and if you look at a lot of my receivers catching the ball, unless they're right around the 15 or 20-yard line and I'm in that end zone,
yeah,
that's when I'll shoot in front of the receiver or get usually a shot of them catching the ball because they're usually turned kind of horizontal to the plane of the end zone, I guess. A lot of my receiver shots, if you look, I mean, I pretty much have their backs catching the ball because of where I'm at and such deep passes. But in a sense, I kind of like it. I don't know. I've got a lot of good jumping passes where they went up and, caught the ball. But very rarely do I get to shoot back toward the receiver, like from the quarterback's point of view, because you got so many people in the way.
Yeah.
That a lot of times your camera's like, oh, let's focus on this referee.
Well, there's times when a shot from the back works, and I think we have it here in the sequence where you've got the player going up and his hands are grabbing the ball. I mean, that's a great shot. It's from his back, but it's still, because of the action, is a great shot. Now, one thing I'm noticing here is the white balance looks just spot on. What did you do to set your white balance here?
Well, if anybody knows me, I'm a Kelvin guy. I've converted a few fellow friends up there to Kelvin skill.
Yeah.
But basically, all I do is when I get to any place, location, whatever, I kind of pick a Kelvin scale and either go up or down from there. And with the dome, what was good about it is I think I even did a little nerdy Facebook post about it. But
I remember seeing it, yeah.
Yeah, it's the nerdy photographer coming out of me. But I think I was shooting like 4750, I believe it was.
Okay.
And I shot that the whole game, and with this being such great lighting, I didn't have any color shifts or anything like that. Everything was so evenly lit, so made it really easy to edit, no doubt.
Yeah. Now you just take some test shots and then look at the back of your camera?
I do. There's a couple ways I'll do it. A lot of times I'll just do a test shot or two, and obviously you can probably tell by some of my images I'm a little more toward the warm side. I just like stuff kind of warm and fuzzy, I guess. I don't know. I know some people like a little to the cooler side, but I'm more like, I guess, warm is.
Yeah, and I think for me, if you're gonna go to one side, I'd rather it be a little bit warm than a little bit cool.
Yeah.
The blue, the blue generally is not as flattering as a little bit warm.
Yeah. And another way I'll do it every once in a while, if I really want to try to nail it, I'll turn my camera on live view, and then I'll actually sit there and scroll through the Kelvin temps while looking at the live view.
Ah.
And that way you can see it through your camera and then see it on the outside, so you can kind of match up what's on your screen versus what you're actually seeing.
That's a good idea.
That's a good idea. So
it's kind of a cool way to do it as well. It takes a little longer. You don't look as cool, but it works.
Yeah, whatever.
If you get the right picture, it doesn't matter whether you look cool in the moment.
Scott, a lot of times photographers only look cool to the other photographers. So I don't know if the rest of the people looking at us think we're that cool.
And you know what's neat is, like, it was so cool, like, on the sidelines, because, I mean, there's probably hundreds of photographers there, and everybody had, like, these big jacked-up lenses and camera bodies, and I know when I go somewhere to shoot, I'm always kind of glancing over and kind of checking out equipment, and seeing what they have, and, I mean, even your seasoned pros to your newbies like me shooting out there, we was all just kind of, like, giving a little eye looking, oh, what are you shooting with? It's just, I don't know, it's just common conversation to have. It's kind of neat, I guess. It never gets old, at least not to me.
Now, you know, when my wife is a big football fan, so as we're watching Georgia, you know, she went to Georgia. As we're watching the Georgia game, somebody goes in the end zone, and, you know, she'll be cheering for Georgia, and I'll be saying, do you see that guy with the Nikon in the back? The player almost hit that guy.
Oh, I cannot go to a college football game.
Yeah.
If I'm there live, I'm just like, I've got binoculars out, and I'm like, oh my God, he's got a 600. Look at that thing. It's ridiculous. I need to kind of step out of the photography box a minute or two, but it's hard.
Yeah, it's just the way we are. But you know, I've always thought that the back of the camera was not accurate enough to set your white balance, but maybe things have changed, or I was just wrong. But yeah, obviously from your images, they look like the back of the camera is accurate enough to set white balance.
Yeah, I've always went by snapped a shot, looked at the image, cool it up, warm it up. I mean, cool it down, warm it up. Now I do have a starting point. Like I've told several people that usually when I'm shooting outside, whether it's cloudy or sunny or whatever, usually my starting Kelvin is like 6250.
Okay.
And then I'll adjust accordingly based on the first couple shots, but typically I'm right around 6250, sometimes as high as 6750.
Wow. And that's where maybe I'm going to say something I go against what I just said earlier, because I generally, my starting point is 5600, which is on the cooler. Cool. It was on the cooler side. Yeah,
that's way cool for me.
Yeah, and of course I adjust from there. So you know, you did this just this past weekend. I mean, this just happened this past weekend. Yeah, anything you do different if you get a chance next year?
I don't know. I like the 400. It's a sweet lens. Like I was telling you earlier before the show, this one guy had a Nikon 300, and we was shooting, you know, different shots before the game started at different distances and comparing what they look like on screen. We both had full frame cameras, and his 300 f2.8 was pretty sweet lens for, you know, for a football field. You could cover about anywhere you wanted to and get great detail, because you can always crop down if you need and still get, you know, a good shot with a full frame. And even when they're close by, you can shoot at the 300 and not get like cutting off top of heads or feet or anything like that. So I might like to try the 300 out and give it a little shot, but this 400 did make beautiful pictures, and it was sharp. I could not believe how sharp it was.
Oh, I know. And these images here are not really doing it justice because, you know, I'm having to compress them a little bit for the stream. But when I was looking at them, even on Facebook, they're still compressed, and that you can tell that they were sharp. They look good. Huh. Right, it sounds a few people are having some issues with the stream. I wonder if streaming these photos have been too much fun. I'm looking at the stream rate, and we're only around 400 kilobits, which should be plenty for DSL. I wonder if you're on wireless, that could, maybe your wireless is not able to keep up. That could be the issue. Let's just try this. We'll switch over to just showing us for a second and give their feed a little bit of a break. So we're actually coming up close to the hour, and if you're people out there in chat, you know, if you have a question for Scott that we didn't cover earlier, you know, go ahead and ask them now before we get off. I want to give you a chance to ask questions. So I know we had Doug out there. I don't know if he's still there, but he just shot his first swim meet and shared a few photos with me earlier, and they look pretty good, especially for a first swim meet. I mean, obviously, he knows what he's doing, and it may have been his first swim meet, but he has done, you know, stuff before, so they look good. So any questions out there in chat that didn't cover? I know we were both Nikon shooters, both Scott and I. So if you have a Canon question, I can't answer it. Maybe Scott can, but I can't. Scott, you are the one who convinced me to, or told me about the back button focus issue with Nikon VR lenses, and that has been a huge change for me.
So that
yeah, I was shooting with the back button focus, and I was using the 7200 with the VR turned on, and I never was getting very good sharp images. And what I kept having to do was say, this lens just can't shoot at f2.8. I know I paid a lot of money for this lens. It just can't shoot at 2.8. So I was shooting at f4, f5.6, trying to get some sharpness in there. And the next time I went out and shot, after you told me about that, and I switched off a back button focus and used the regular button. And I do like back button focus, but once I switched to the main focus button, whatever, dramatic change in my images. That lens is excellent at 2.8. Well, all along I thought it was not.
Yeah, I actually shot we had the same discussion in our Facebook group. Me and another guy that I shoot with, we both had the same cameras, same lenses, and we were talking about back button focus, and I was like, well, that sounds pretty cool. I think I'll use it one wedding. And luckily I shot enough and caught enough to where it didn't matter during the ceremony, but I was using the back button while VR was engaged.
Yeah.
And yeah, those two you can't use them both. It's either one or the other.
So somebody in chat asked what back button focus, and I'm going to try and show you here on my Nikon. There's a little button right there that says AF-on. If you can see that out in chat. And what that does is you can convert that to where that is actually the thing that focuses. So you press that, you hold that down, and it is focusing the whole time you're holding it down. When you hit the shutter button, all it does is take the photo. I don't know, maybe it does exposure then too. I can't remember what it does. But I know the main thing is what it does is it takes the photo. So what you're doing is you're separating the focus from actually taking the photo. And the reason you might want to do that is maybe let's say for instance I'm taking photos of a diver, and I am not good enough to focus track the diver. So I got a guy on a board who's getting ready to dive, and they bounce, and as they go, my focus will too often grab the people behind them, and that's where the focus is. And I've got the first couple of frames of the diver in focus, and then the rest of them are locked onto the people behind them. What I could do is with AF-on, the back button focus, is lock on to the diver when he's standing on the board, and then let go of it and just use the shutter button for the rest of the way, because the focus plane that he's on is probably going to be the same all the way through his dive. What I do instead now is I might flip it back to manual focus after I get him on the starting of the diving board. Flip it to manual focus. So after I lock onto him, and then I can get that. The problem that Scott made me aware of is with Nikon VR lenses, is that when you're using back button focus, it is not engaging the VR, that thing that's creating the image stabilization. So when you go to hit the shutter button, that engages it, but also takes the image at the same time. And the VR does not have time to settle down before it takes the image, and you end up introducing blur into the image, and you'll be confused as to what's going on. I had plenty of shutter speed. I wasn't moving the lens or the camera. It shouldn't have happened. I don't know what's going on, and it's just an odd. It's very subtle, at least mine was, but you can tell it's not as sharp as it should be. Does that kind of explain it, Scott?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay. And I hope that Danielle answers your question, what back button focus is.
Yeah.
And for, I think it's Alicia is losing your country accent and talk, Scott.
Yes, that's the Oklahoma girl.
She's having some connection issues. And, of course, this is recorded, so you may have to catch it recorded to see all of Scott. What other questions do we have out there for Scott? Or Tim, I kind of dominated the questions. If you have any questions,
No, I can't even speak. I got the cold.
yeah, no. And then Tim works for UPS, and this is from what I hear, a busy time for you guys.
Slightly.
So poor Tim is going to actually be loading trucks here coming soon.
It's been a long time since I've done that.
Yeah, I got to go back to work at 2 p.m.
2 a.m.
2 a.m. Yeah, 2 a.m. And, so you got that, and mine's going to be a little bit easier because it's only one day. But if you want to catch me, I work for Waffle House. I'm the controller and now the head of IT, too, for Waffle House.
There's a surprise.
Yeah. If you want to catch me, Christmas morning, I will be washing dishes in a restaurant here in Swanee. We like to get all of our management to go out and work in a restaurant on Christmas Day, at least part of the day, to get an experience. It actually is a fun experience. Everybody's in a good mood. So,
there's a question: do I really use Sam's batteries in my OCF? I found that Sam's brand batteries are the best and the cheapest, and yes, I really do. About 96 at a time.
What's an OCF?
What? Wait, 96?
Off-camera flash.
Oh, duh.
What was 96?
I buy them by the packs of 48.
Okay.
For like $12.99. AA batteries.
Do you know what the what is that called? The power rating, the MAH?
I do not, but I know that I bought Duracell and Energizers, and the Sam's batteries seem to last a lot longer.
Wow.
And
I got the last set I got do fairly well, but I don't use it as much as you, so your experience is probably better, but it's something called see if the camera can focus on that. Power X.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, it's not going to focus close enough. Power X is like 2700 is the rating, whatever that means. And I got them in this pack. It comes in, and they've worked pretty good. But I have not tried the Sam, so I don't know, how these will stack up to those. I think I got these off of Amazon. They weren't that expensive.
And I use.
Well, here's a question I forgot to ask you. Here's a question I forgot to ask you, Scott. So, what's that, Tim?
Enelope. These are rechargeable ones that I use.
I don't know familiar with that. So, I have seen people who are shooting with a monopod who have, ball heads on them and all kind of stuff like that. What did you put? Let me show you the top of mine. So, I just have this little swivel thing. It doesn't go anywhere else. All it will do is swivel up and down, and I generally will lock it in place so it's not moving around. What did you? I've seen some people just take this off and shoot, just with the top, just like that. How did you use your monopod?
that's probably the way I would have preferred it, but mine is basically a ball head, and it can actually swivel like 360 degrees.
Okay.
And like I said, I tightened it down really tight, and I never got any camera movement as heavy as the camera was. I use it's a heavy-duty Manfrotto monopod, so I think it's like $80. It was really expensive.
This is a Manfrotto.
But
it's not heavy duty.
The only time I got it to bend down was when I kind of threw it over my shoulder.
Yeah.
And the weight of it kind of tilted it, but outside of that, it never really
Yeah,
moved.
if you're gonna be doing that, make sure you got that stuff locked down. I remember seeing a guy, again, he thought he was gonna look cool, and you do look. I think you do look a little cool when you do that. But he had his camera with a 7200 on it, and he did like this, bam, thing fell right off. Lens, camera, the whole thing just fell right off, hit the ground. Like, oh, good God, I would be sick right there if that happened.
The monopod was probably still okay though.
So, well, yeah, the monopod was fine because it was still on the shoulder. You know what I do? Because I am so, I wouldn't do this with the 400 because that would be too much weight. But my 7200, if I ever do put it on my shoulder like this, I have the strap still through my arm. So if somehow it fell off, I would catch it with the strap. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I like to pull out all kind of stuff because I know Jim Collison's out there and he likes me to just yank stuff off my desk. as we talk. Like the Really Right Stuff catalog I just got.
There you go. Just more ways to spend money.
Yeah, I know. I wish I had unlimited funds. Because I was just looking at this monopod head. Not that you can really see that well, but that looked pretty good. So what other questions? Like they liked your batteries there, Tim.
Yes, Melissa and Doug apparently are using them also.
Yeah, and Alicia is not showing the photos helping your stream any. Sometimes the photos add to the bandwidth. Although we're pushing out about the same amount of bandwidth as before, so I'm not sure that's going to be helping her any. Well, Scott, as we in the show here, thank you very much for coming on. We didn't give you much notice, but I'm so glad we got you on because I really wanted to talk about your week this past weekend. That's I would love to do that. And what I was looking for when I said what would you do differently was what you would do differently is you'd say, Mike, I'd ask you to come and hold that 300 millimeter for me. Maybe take a few shots if you wanted. Hold that 300 millimeter for me whenever I needed to take some photos with it.
Yeah, it was definitely fun. And what's cool is, of course, I need to shoot a high school game first to really see, but the same girl who got me the media pass, she emailed me today and said if I wanted floor side, sitting along the baseline at a Hawks game to let her know. And as long as I supply them with the images, they'll get me into any pretty much sporting event I want with a media pass. So,
yeah, awesome. That's awesome. I think I broke it. No, Alicia, I don't know. Maybe it's something going on with the stream because a few of us. I haven't had a stream problem, but you never know where it is going on from where you're at. The link to where you're at. Well, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, this is our last show for 2012. The next show would fall on Christmas Day, so we're not doing a show then. I'm sure somewhere in 2013 we'll have Scott back again. He's a regular we like to have on the show. And you're asking her PC or Mac now, huh, Scott? At least you do have one redeeming quality, Scott. You do shoot Nikon. You're not like Kathleen who shoots Canon and uses a Mac. But so this is the last show for 2012, and the first week in 2013 we'll miss because that show falls right on New Year's Day. So we'll be taking another 2-week break. We're booking a lot of people for 2013, and we'll be launching a new website, like I mentioned, and maybe even another show, Tim, besides this one. Although it probably will not be a live show. It'll be something else. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to email Tim, Kathleen, or I, or if you want to contact Scott, you can get them through us at podcast@jpeg2RAW.com. Scott, if they want to get in touch with you directly, and we'll have this in show notes, but if they want to get in touch with you directly, what is your website again?
Website is greeneworks.net, and that's GREENE works, WRKS.net, and you can always email me, Scott@greeneworks.net, and like I says, I'm kind of nerdy and like to talk photography, so.
Yeah. Now, do you have a Facebook page, or is it just a personal page?
No, I've got both. I've got a personal page, which is basically still like a business page, and then my Facebook page, I think, is just Scott Greene Photography.
Okay. That do you do anything like Twitter or anything like that?
I'm on Twitter, but I really don't understand it.
That makes two of us.
Yeah, it's kind of it's got its purpose, but it's not.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Got on it, and I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Bring up real quick. I don't know if you've heard it. Have you heard about the Instagram ordeal?
I heard a little bit about it. Let's go ahead and what is the deal with that? What I heard was that they can sell your photos or something now.
That's what the new licensing or rights or whatever is. Whatever you take, they can now sell to anybody or whoever wants to buy it, and you get nothing from it.
Yeah,
and that's a way to kill a service quickly.
I hope the lawyers just snuck that in, and somebody's going to say, "Holy crap, what did you do?" and they yank that back out. That's because it seems like Google did that, or Facebook did that at one point too.
Well, this is
or,
Facebook, remember?
or maybe it was yeah, I know they're Facebook now. Or Flickr. Somebody had done that before, and there was an uproar, and they backtrack on it. So hopefully they backtrack on this, because I can't imagine thinking you own my photo just because I posted on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just you don't own my photo ever, unless I unless I give it to you in writing. And I guess they're saying by using our service, you've agreed to our terms. But yeah, that's something to know.
Right.
Plaster your watermark all over the thing.
Which I think with Instagram, I don't know if I think you just take it with your phone and just automatically upload it to us.
Right. There's no way of putting the.
Yeah.
See, we need an app that puts in the watermark automatically.
Which I'm not on Instagram yet. I've still got a Crackberry, and I don't think they're on Crackberries yet.
Oh, and Jackie saying didn't Fro, which I think she means Fro knows photo. Jared Pollan post something that is not true. I don't know. I didn't read his post, but I've heard it from multiple sources that there's something going on there. So
yeah, I just posted a link to an article on it.
Have to stay tuned, because I'm not on Instagram either, so it's not affecting me directly. So it's not something I'm personally worried about. Anything, Tim? The Facebook group is up to 668 people.
668.
Yeah, so glad. We were stuck on 666 for like 2 days. Like, God, come on, somebody join.
And now don't leave.
Yeah, at least two of you do not leave. And I didn't want one to leave at 666, because then we'd have to come right back to it. And Alicia said she'll listen to the show later. She thinks she has some issues tonight with it. I will have this show up in a couple of days. You can get it on YouTube. YouTube is usually the first place I get it to, because I don't have to do show notes. And on iTunes, on Stitcher Radio, and of course on our site here itself. And I guess that is going to close out 2012. Feels like I should have a better. We're on show number 66. I got to come up with a good ending. That needs to be one of the goals for 2013. Tim, is a good closing.
Yeah, we don't really have anything other than me giving a salute.
You doing a salute?
That's what I do at the end of every show.
You do?
Yeah. You didn't even notice.
See, I guess you have something. I don't have anything. I didn't even know you had that. All right. Well, Scott, again, thank you for coming out, and have a great 2013. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again at some point. Everybody out in chat, have a great 2013, and be sure to join our Facebook group and join our December contest, and be looking for the show coming up in 2013. We'll see you next year.
Good night, all.
Good night, all.
Good night.